Alright, catching the man selling dead people on Instagram.
November,
Let's see.
people began noticing a
what the
strange
cycle was
Instagram
up to.
account that almost exclusively featured artistic photographs of human remains. If you know, you know. Skulls and bones available. DM to inquire. It seemed whoever was behind this account wasn't just photographing
apparently
skulls.
this went viral already because this shit already has hella comments, hella likes. This dude with a verified account is already commenting. Like this few was here before the Netflix
Available.
documentary.
DM to inquire. It seemed whoever was behind this account wasn't just photographing skulls, they were selling them. But what was the meaning behind the cryptic
That's
line,
crazy.
if you know, you know? Months later, the world would find out. A leaked video of unknown origin started to appear on social media feeds. It showed the inside of a house, filled
Was he going around like digging graves? Taking this? Because this sounds like a solid hustle. Low key.
with dead bodies.
Or was he just a straight up psycho serial killer?
And then, all of a sudden, the Instagram account and leaked video disappeared
Yeah,
from
the
the
fact that you can do something like this on Instagram and this shit goes unnoticed for months until these YouTubers find it, bro, it's just crazy.
internet. But thankfully, we had documented everything before it was lost forever. On November 7th, 2025, at 11:29 a.m., officers from the Eden Police Department were dispatched to the Mount Moriah Cemetery in Pennsylvania. As soon as they arrived, the scene immediately drew concern. The Hunter family mausoleum, previously sealed with
So he
cinder
was at
block
a
and cement,
cemetery.
had been forcibly opened. Inside, the marble floor had been broken apart,
Nah, this dude is
exposing
crazy,
the crypts nearly 10 feet below ground level. Among the debris, investigators found a screwdriver engraved multiple times with the name Brian. Also inside the mausoleum was a rope that suggested it had been used to descend into the exposed crypts. One of those crypts belonged to Martha Hunter, a preteen who died in 1869. The marble
Damn.
stone sealing her resting place had been forcibly breached.
1800s.
Her remains, along with her clothing, were missing. Before police could determine who Brian was or why someone would steal the remains
Here's
of
the
a
thing,
child,
how do they even know, like, what sets off their alarms that someone did this? Because if he did this properly, like, you could probably do this and get away with it for years, you know what I mean? And then flee the country eventually.
buried more than a century earlier, were called back to the cemetery.
Like, who's going to check the remains of someone born in, like, the 1800s and, like, actually opening the coffin and shit?
On November 29th, 2025, police were directed to Jonathan Pritchard Family Mausoleum. 5 of the 9 crypts inside had been robbed. However, this time, the perpetrator had left an empty can of Monster Energy, and the police were
this
able to
was a
recover
rookie.
2 partial fingerprints from it. Swabs were
Wow.
also taken from the can, as well as the Brian screwdriver for DNA samples. Whoever was doing this was expanding their grave robbing. It seemed like the age of the deceased didn't matter at all, only the remains themselves. It seemed the grave robber was getting sloppy already, though, leaving more and more
Very
clues for
sloppy, bro.
investigators. But would it be enough to catch them?
You already leaving
However,
fucking
the
fingerprints?
police were called again, this time about a robbery that had occurred weeks earlier. On November 6, 2025, at a cemetery on 1500 block of Westminster Road, Luzerne County, more than 100 miles from Mount Moriah, 2 sets of remains were stolen. The victims were Mary Capellina Paga, an 83-year-old woman
I
who
wonder how
died
much
in
he sold
1981, and Leo Terrence, a 53-year-old man
And-
who
and
also died that same
who's
year.
also buying
2 cigarette
dead people
butts and
remains.
2 energy drink cans were collected and sent for DNA analysis. Police were called on at least 3 more occasions in December, where they discovered that 49 sets of remains were taken from 9 different families' resting places in Mount Moriah Cemetery. The cemetery is of Yeadon in Philadelphia, and police eventually became aware of 10 additional family plots being burglarized in the Philadelphia section in the same manner as the robberies in the Yeadon section in the cemetery in Luzerne County. By the end of December, the total confirmed stolen bodies had reached 61. This number,
What?
however, does not include the 10 additional family plots that were burglarized, since the exact number of corpses taken from those sites remains unknown. Investigators noticed the same
Bro,
details repeated.
61?
Cigarette butts, empty energy drink cans, and in at least 2 mausoleums, police found broken wooden pallets propped upright, presumably used as makeshift ladders to climb in and out of underground vaults. The scale of the crimes raised a troubling concern. What would drive someone to go through the extremely difficult, dishonorable, and frankly disgusting work to exhume so many dead bodies? And what on earth could they possibly be doing with them all? Barbara Kilmartin,
That's
who had
facts.
family members buried at Mount Moriah, later said, "It's the last thing we can do for people is to honor their wishes and to not disturb them. I just can't understand why somebody would do that." Well, she was not alone in her confusion, but another question lingered. Why Mount Moriah? Established in 1855, the cemetery had long served as a final resting place for a wide range of Philadelphia's population. After the cemetery was abandoned by its owners, a volunteer group, Friends of Mount Moriah, was formed in 2011 to restore the grounds and preserve the site as a place of quiet remembrance. However, despite the volunteers' efforts, the cemetery is still quite run down. This could be why the grave robber was targeting Mount Moriah in particular. Due to its size, overground vegetation, and lack of consistent maintenance or monitoring, it's not hard to imagine why a person and their illicit actions would go unnoticed. That changed on November 7th, when members of the Friends of Mount Moriah contacted police after first noticing signs of disturbance at one of the mausoleums. As authorities continued to investigate, they received a tip. Look into Jonathan Gerlach for the Luzerne County Mausoleum robbery. I know someone who's friends with his family, and they mentioned that they recently discovered a partially decomposed corpse hanging in his basement, but were afraid to tell the police. Well, talk about a first lead. Police took it seriously and immediately started digging. Records showed that Jonathan Gerlach was charged on November 6, 2025, with shoplifting tools from a hardware store in East Earl Township, Lancaster County. Search warrants stated that the stolen items included a headlamp, a rechargeable LED glow stick, a hammer drill bit, medium-sized work gloves, and a metal cutting wheel with a combined value of $167.43. Investigators noted that during the same visit to the hardware store, Gerlach paid for more than $250 worth of other merchandise. Court documents emphasized that the items he did not pay for were tools commonly associated with burglaries. He may have believed that stealing the tools would help him avoid detection, but instead it backfired and only drew further attention to his actions and raised suspicion. The tipster also directed investigators to Gerlach's Instagram account. What they found raised further concern. Of the 147 posts on the account, only 2 showed Gerlach himself. The rest depicted human and animal remains. In his most recent post, dated January 5th,
this dude is not even trying to hide the shit. Just go on his IG and you'll see everything.
6, he wrote,
If you know, you know. Skull and bones available.
If you know, you know. Skulls/bones available. DM to inquire. Followed by a pointer finger emoji and, quote, from my personal gallery. An earlier post from October 1st, 2024
sold. Bro, by the way, everyone who liked these needs to be fucking investigated. And second of all, who the fuck is buying these and what are you doing with it?
contained just one word. Sold. As police reviewed the account more closely, some of the most disturbing posts appeared to involve the remains of a child. In one post, Gerlach wrote,
bro.
This precious little one, just 3 or 4 years old, has recently come under my guardianship to be honored and preserved. She will find a place in my private collection, where she will be housed with the utmost
I don't even want to think about what this
said
dude's
about
doing
who the child was or where the remains came from. Was this skull from one of the multiple children's corpses stolen from Mount Moriah? If so, does supposedly restoring and handling them with care justify removing them from their resting place? Is it even possible for this child's remains to be honored and housed with the utmost respect if her caretaker is the same person who took her from her home in the first place? While Gerlach claimed to keep some remains for his personal collection, others were allegedly sold, like the remains of a 6-month-old infant, as well as those of a 3 or 4-year-old child, whose skull was modified into an exploding head. Dozens of other posts featured remains identified only as young adults or older individuals. The account also displayed animal remains. Kittens, leopards, and other wild cats appeared throughout the feed. Some were listed as sold. One example, a Bengal tiger posted on March 20th, 2024, was marked as sold for $2,000. In the caption, Gerlach described the item as ethically sourced/acquired. That same phrasing appears repeatedly in the earlier days of his account, applied not only to animal remains, but to human ones as well, such as in one post dated March 18th, 2024, where he shows a skull of a woman he claims was middle-aged and ends with the statement, as always, ethically sourced/acquired, not for sale. However, in his later posts, specifically from the period when the grave robbing was taking place, his assurances of the remains being ethically sourced are notably missing. He also appears to be showcasing less remains that he's keeping for his personal gallery and is more focused on selling them. But, what does...
Alyssa right here
appears to be showcasing less remains that he's keeping for his personal gallery.
You saw someone found that's crazy,
and
bro.
Is more focused on selling them. But, what does ethically sourced even mean? And is there really a legal market for the sale of human remains? Well, surprisingly, yes. In recent years, human bones and modified remains have become increasingly visible on social media. The market includes a range of buyers, from collectors of curiosities to ritual practitioners. A smaller number of contemporary
what
artists
type
and
of
designers
rituals are they doing
incorporate
with
human
these
remains into sculptures or
human
installations.
remains? I'm kinda
Medical and
curious.
dental students have also historically sought real skulls for study. There are, however, strict differences between legal anatomical preparation and illicit removal. In 2016, National Geographic reported that Skulls Unlimited was the only company in the United States legally processing donor skulls obtained directly through body donation programs. That company only sells donor skulls to verified professionals, including doctors, dentists, anthropologists, and others with legitimate scientific or medical needs. Skulls from the 18th, 19th, or early 20th century, which qualify as
$2,000?
antique skulls, may be sold to the general public. At the federal level, there is no single U.S. law prohibiting the sale of human remains, with the exception of certain states and strict protections for Native American remains. As a result, collectors do not generally need credentials to buy or sell human skulls already on the market. So, the owning and trade of human remains is not illegal. What matters is how they were originally acquired from the deceased. Grave robbing itself is not new. For centuries, graves were disturbed to steal valuables buried with the dead. Body snatching,
That makes
however,
sense.
emerged as a more specific practice tied to the rise of modern medicine. By the late 18th century, advances in medical training and the growth of medical schools had created a shortage of legally available bodies for dissection. This led to the rise of resurrectionists, individuals who exhumed the recently dead and sold the bodies to medical institutions. At the time, British law did not recognize buried bodies as property, allowing the practice to continue until legislation in 1832 reduced widespread grave robbing. However, the demand persisted. Over time, India became a major supplier of human bones for Western medical study, driven by economic hardship and limited burial options. That trade ended in 1985 when the sale of more than 1,500 child skeletons was uncovered, prompting India to ban the export of human remains. While many remains in circulation today originated as donated anatomical specimens, the renewed demand for human bones has coincided with a renewal in grave robbing. Because anybody can sell human remains, it is difficult to determine what has been ethically sourced, but still there is a way. Donated anatomical specimens often show signs of preparation, such as drilled holes, varnish, or metal fittings. Remains taken directly from graves, by contrast, may exhibit soil staining, root etching, microfractures from long-term burial, or fragments of coffin wood, nails, or fabric still attached.
Yeah, I have no
Individually,
idea what they
these
want to do
indicators
with
are
those.
not definitive. Taken
Some
together,
dogs are
they
mine
help
shit.
distinguish between remains prepared for study
Can't
and
even
those
think about
removed
that.
illegally from the ground. For example, Jonathan Gerlach's post from July 22, 2025, shows a human skull in which he draws particular attention
An exceptionally well-preserved individual in my gallery. Take special notice, all nose hair, neck hair remain. Our largest organ, blankets, leaving bone.
to remaining nasal hair,
His mummified brain is still inside.
neck hair,
What the
facial
hell?
hair, eyebrows, eyelashes, and
Wait,
fine
so this might be a stupid question, but when someone, so these skulls basically, is there like a brain inside it, or like how does that? Do they harvest the brain, like donate it,
vellus hair.
or does the brain just like decay with everything else? Like you just can't, it just doesn't show up.
Another post from August 22nd, 2025,
Available, elongated, partially mummified. Both eyes remain in the orbital sockets. Snag her before. Oh no, bro. How did no one realize you were selling robbed corpses? You plugged these out of a
5
coffin.
shows a skull with remnants of the eyes still present in the orbital sockets, visible hair on the skull itself, and signs
Yeah,
of
they're doing.
decomposition
If
consistent
they're
with
talking about like the eyes are still in the sockets and the hair is on them, like it's definitely some
buried in
weird
the
shit they're
ground.
doing with that.
By contrast,
With
legally
those
obtained
bones.
skulls from Skulls Unlimited typically show clear medical preparation with clean surfaces and an overall consistent, standardized look. However,
Yeah,
even
weirdos
if
don't
we
want them.
ethically
They want
source
like
the
the DNA
remains,
stuff.
what is the morality of having a skull in your living room as decoration? As Jonathan Gerlach's story gained traction,
That
so
ain't no,
did his
bro.
Instagram
If I walk in someone's house and they got fucking human skulls on the wall and shit, bro, I'm sprinting out. Like it's complete red flag. This isn't no decoration. Like I don't know. This is weird.
and in one post
I'm
dated
not
November
buying
6,
that.
2020,
Like that would remind me of the movie Get Out. Not gonna lie, these pictures are beautiful. Thing is, these are remains of humans who likely have been dead for hundreds of years. Not saying it makes it right, but if I had been dead for so long, had since long gone themselves, I would be offended. I mean, That is kind of true because they are just the remains, but it's just what are they doing with it? Why is he selling it? And I know they're doing some weird shit with it. You know what I mean? Like just let the dead rest.
3, a user wrote, "Not gonna lie, these pictures are beautiful. Thing is, these are remains of humans who have likely been dead for hundreds of years. Not saying it makes it right, but if I had been dead for so long that the world and any potential living relatives had long since gone themselves, I wouldn't be offended if some dude dug me up and took a few cool photos before dispersing my remains all over the place to people who love and appreciate that sort of thing.
Nah,
People
bro.
might be grossed out,
They don't
but
love it.
there are
Appreciate
others
it, bro.
on
I'm telling you, they're doing weird shit with that. Like you don't even want to know it, bro. I'm telling you, you wouldn't be fine with it. Even if you're dead, even if you're long gone, you would not rest well knowing that people are doing that shit with your fucking remains.
online who sell human bones. This comment brings up an argument, certainly, but if we're to take this comment seriously, the user here is describing a personal belief, one in which they would consent to being exhumed, artistically photographed, and sold for profit after death. But here's the thing, not everyone would. Across cultures, and even within the same culture, death is viewed differently.
Would y'all care if
People
someone
have
stole your
different
remains
beliefs on the
100 years
sanctity
later?
of remains, as well as different wishes for what should and shouldn't be done to the remains after they die. Just because there are living people who do not believe remains are sacred and don't care what happens to their body after they die, doesn't mean that those people should be able to decide what happens to the dead bodies of people who do care. What people choose to do with their bodies after death is their choice, and so far as it is possible, these wishes should be honored. Even when they can't, we should be mindful of a certain glorification of death and show respect for the life that came before. None of which can be said about
That's true.
Jonathan's alleged actions. Breaking into crypts and stealing bodies is not what would qualify as being respectful of people's wishes. Even when there aren't any living relatives of that person, if they were laid to
I wonder how
rest
much
in a
money you made on this
cemetery,
shit.
then we can assume
Probably
that they
hundreds of
didn't
thousands.
consent to being harvested for bones to be sold on Instagram. Now, you might be wondering, Brew, why are you spending so much time discussing the morality of Jonathan's grave robbing? It's obviously bad, but you'd be surprised to see how many have defended him online, saying that what he did isn't that bad.
I
So
mean,
we
yeah,
thought
because
we
you
should
can
try
see
to lay
both
out the
points.
reasons why.
You can see both points. You can be like, all right, this person is dead. Like they're not like they don't care. They've been dead for hundreds of years. Like they're probably moved on to like another life by now. They don't care about their current body. You know what I mean? They can't even feel it. They don't even know what's going on. You know what I mean? So that's one side. But then the other side is like, all right, but it's still wrong. Like they're doing weird shit. Plus, it's like an infinite fucking money glitch. And also, you gotta let the dead rest. You know what I mean?
What he did is, in fact, that bad. But at this point in the
And if
investigation,
you were told that your body was gonna get dug up 100 years later, and they were gonna do weird shit with it, you probably, I mean, I don't know. You could probably say like, who cares? Because you've been dead already. I don't know, bro.
Jonathan Gerlach was still at large, free to desecrate the dead as he pleased. As police
Damn,
continued
so they
digging
found
into his
out about him and
activities,
they didn't do
another
shit?
detail began to stand out. Among the followers on his Instagram account
Oh.
was a man named Brian, spelled the same way as the name repeatedly etched into the screwdriver recovered at one of the ransacked mausoleums. According to search warrants, the person who had originally contacted them about Jonathan also told police that Brian had disappeared for several days in November and later mentioned he had been in Chicago selling a human skull. Did this mean Jonathan
Wow.
Gerlach hadn't been acting alone? The same day they received the tip, investigators began tracking Gerlach's movements. On December 23rd, Eden police conducted a license plate reader search on Gerlach's Toyota RAV4. Records showed the vehicle had traveled into or near the areas where bodies were stolen on at least 5 occasions between November 2nd and December 17th, the same window of time when the thefts occurred. Court documents also stated that cell phone records placed him in those same areas at the same times. On December 23rd, a Yeadon officer on patrol at Mount Moriah noticed a Toyota RAV4 parked between 2 fallen tree limbs inside the cemetery. Police believed the positioning was intentional, meant to conceal the vehicle. No one was inside, but multiple energy drink cans were visible on the front passenger seat. Later that evening, officers went to Gerlach's residence in Ephrata and saw the same vehicle parked outside. On January 6th, detectives patrolling Mount Moriah again found Gerlach's Toyota parked near the cemetery. This time, police reported seeing human skulls and bones in the back seat. Gerlach was arrested
Oh,
shortly
nice, bro.
afterward when they observed him walking back toward the vehicle, carrying a crowbar and a burlap sack containing a child's mummified remains.
What the fuck?
That same day, police executed a search warrant at Gerlach's home. Inside, they
the
reported
children
finding over
alone, man.
100 human skulls, numerous human long bones, mummified human feet and hands, 2 decomposing human torsos, and other assorted skeletal items. Not long after, an alleged leaked video from inside his house surfaced.
Oh,
protecting my grandmother's dentures.
Content prohibited on
It
the
is.
YouTube
Gross.
community
Look at the one
guidelines.
hanging.
Bro, so this dude's whole house was decorated with
Look at these
skulls and
ones. All the ones
humans.
behind you. God damn.
Oh, that one's still alive.
That's not long alive. Hold on, I want to get that.
Wait, they said it's still
Oh,
alive?
look at this.
I don't think that's possible. But yeah, you got to think about the energetical
What the is that a pacemaker?
forces at
While
play.
we couldn't
of
confirm
just
the
having
origin
human
of the video,
bones
several
and
details
dead
suggested
humans
it may
like
be
around you and
authentic.
shit.
At the 21-second mark,
I wouldn't
one of
be
the
surprised
people
the house is
visible in the
haunted by
footage
now. Like,
appears to
I
be
would not
wearing
wanna
a
step inside the
firearm in a
house.
holster, indicating they were likely police. Earlier in the clip, between 9 seconds and 11 seconds, a couch is visible that closely resembles the fabric and design seen in the background of Gerlach's skull photographs. It is possible the couch or a similar piece of furniture was used as backdrop for those images. Another detail drew particular attention online. A Reddit user known as CardioTechie pointed out a visible pacemaker in the footage, writing,
What's a
"The
pacemaker?
pacemaker detail makes me think it's real. That is definitely a real pacemaker design. Looks like a Medtronic or a Boston Scientific. That specific set of remains will be able to be identified at least." A second user, LividMoose553, noted that the video was edited. According to their observation, the opening seconds show a storage unit, while the remainder of the footage appears to be filmed inside a basement. Whatever the origin of the video, it offered a disturbing glimpse of what Jonathan Gerlach's basement may have contained. According to authorities, Gerlach later admitted to stealing approximately 30 sets of human remains from Mount Moriah and described how he accessed the burial sites. On January 7, 2026, District Attorney Tanner Rouse spoke at a press conference regarding the case.
It is truly, in the most literal sense of the
How much
word,
jail time
horrific.
y'all think he's gonna?
I grieve
Like, what would
for
be a
those who are
solid
upset by this,
fair
who are going through it, who
jail
are trying to
time?
figure out if it is in fact their loved one or their child, because we
Yeah,
found
it was-
remains that we
Sure,
believe
that
to
was
be
crazy, bro.
months old infants among
Wow, bro.
those that he had collected.
Yeah.
When Chief of
That's
Edenborough
sick.
Police Henry Gianmarco was asked if he had ever seen something similar, he replied,
No. After 30 years now, I can say this is probably the most horrific thing that I've seen. And again, to the families, as the district attorney pointed out, we all have loved ones that passed. Like, rest in peace is rest in peace. And this
That's
is
right.
definitely something that tears at your heartstring, especially when you see, as he pointed out, an infant having children and grandchildren. Yeah, it was definitely an event.
Jonathan Gerlach was ultimately charged with 489 criminal counts, including 100 counts of corpse abuse. Additional charges include theft, burglary, intentional desecration of venerated objects, trespassing, criminal mischief, receiving stolen property, and desecration of historic burial sites. He was held in custody in Delaware County, Pennsylvania on a $1 million bail and was scheduled to appear at a preliminary hearing on January 20th. While there were no further developments
How much jail
regarding
time is
Brian,
that, bro?
whose name was etched into a screwdriver found at
Are
one
we
of the
serious?
sites, District Attorney Tanner Rouse addressed the matter at a press conference. As of January 2026, Rouse stated that authorities did not believe Gerlach was working with anyone else, and that no
Nah,
additional
man,
arrest warrants
Brian-
had been issued. Beyond the charges
Brian
and
was
court
selling something
dates,
in Chicago,
this case
man.
leaves
They
behind
said
a
it.
deeper question. Death is an unavoidable part of life, but where is the line between embracing it and romanticizing it? Behind every set of remains was once a person who lived, made choices, and entrusted their body
That's
to the
facts,
earth.
man. What
their
I
loved
heard about
ones,
those
or,
infants,
in some
man.
case, to science. Regardless of the
That dude
circumstances,
deserves life.
human remains laid to rest are not meant to be collected for decor or profit. Because it is not only the dead who are wronged, but the living who trust that their final wishes will be respected. If you'd like to help us get the algorithm to notice this video,
But
then
what if the dead wanted their living people that they knew to sell their body to make them like money? If it makes them a lot of money, you know what I mean? You never know, man. Alright, anyways, that's the dude that was selling dead people. Apparently he got life in jail.